idea here for the show. So let's go ahead and kick off with our number 10 game. So I'm really struggling on my number 10 and number 9 slots, but I'm just gonna go in the order that I have it wrote down here. I'm gonna go Midnight Club 1 in at number 10, and for this was a PS2 launch title, I believe, or at least a launch window title. I don't know. I don't remember if my mom got me a PlayStation 2 at launch, but it was shortly thereafter. If she didn't get it at launch. And shout out to my damn mom, man. Always out there providing. Even though we didn't have a ton of money, she was always giving me a dope ass childhood, and you know, never making me feel that we didn't have as much money. Even though we lived in a trailer and obviously had some money issues. I was just given a fucking great childhood despite all of that, and always getting the console somewhere around the launch of them. So the PS2 we got somewhere around the launch, and Midnight Club, like I said, I believe was either a launch window or a launch title. And I remember playing that first Midnight Club game and just being blown away by the graphics. And I enjoy Midnight Club 2 and 3 much more than 1, but that memory of seeing this somewhat open world with these shiny ass cars, and of course the graphics today don't hold up nearly as well. You're looking at the gameplay right now and you're like, what the fuck, this doesn't look good. But man, at the time it was just so impressive, because I was playing those PlayStation 1 racing games like Gran Turismo, and even played some of the earlier Need for Speed games, but this was just on another level visually. The actual driving and shit was okay. This was just totally a tech showpiece for me at the time with the PS2, having something to pop in and be like wowed by. And I don't know what really happened with my love of racing games. It seems to have diminished over time, but there was a time where I really enjoyed like Hot Pursuit and Underground and the Midnight Club games, and I would play a lot of the I think a big part of it's just Blockbuster, and this could have very well been my memory with Midnight Club. Like I don't know if we even bought that or if we went to Blockbuster and rented that when I got the PS2, but I do remember always checking out the racing games at Blockbuster. And yeah, I guess when it comes to like buying it full price, there is a slight difference there. But even looking at Forza Horizon 5, I fucking adored that game, but I played it on Game Pass, so once again it kind of hits back to that Blockbuster feel for me. And so yeah, I really want to play that what was it, the new Need for Speed game that released last year. I want to check that out. It looks pretty cool. But yeah, Midnight Club in at number 10. And at number 9, Spyro Year of the Dragon. This is the last Insomniac developed Spyro game, and really what a lot of people consider to be the last truly great Spyro title. But if I'm being totally honest, the thing that I remember most about Year of the Dragon was the mini games. I just remember having such a good time with these silly as mini games, like the skateboarding time trial, the time challenges, and you had one where you're on a jet ski or some little fucking hovercraft, and there's like a shark in the water chasing you. It's a series that a lot of the actual gameplay blends together, the whole collectathon nature of it blends together in my brain. But Year of the Dragon really stands out because of those memorable mini games or whatever the hell you want to call them. And I need to replay that because I know they have the trilogy remaster that came out on PS4 and Xbox One. I need to pick that up and go back through those. I think I'd have a really good time revisiting that franchise. But there is also that worry of like, going back to something that you have fond memories of and then it not quite holding up. But I need to pick that up because I don't even think I have a physical copy of Year of the Dragon or the PS4 remaster trilogy. So I need to pick that up. Number 9, Jedi Power Battles. Star Wars, or number 8, I'm sorry. Number 8, Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. Me and my buddy, shout out to my buddy BP. He's out there crushing it, becoming a doctor and shit. That's my guy. We would play. This is probably, we were in 2000. We would have been in kindergarten or first grade at the time. I think kindergarten. And we, you know, this was because we were so hot off of Phantom Menace at the time, and we were just like, you know, getting enamored with Star Wars, and this was just definitively the best Star Wars game on the PlayStation 1, and that was, you know, the system that we had. So we would just constantly play fucking Star Wars Jedi power battles, and it was cool because it had a lot of the same like set pieces and some of the same moments from the movie, but it had enough there to keep it different from just being a straight up movie tie-in game. You had like little vehicles that you could drive and shit, and you had you know, different characters that you could play as, like Mace Windu. You play through the whole fucking game as Mace Windu. It was just, you know, a cool kind of little platformer brawler style Star Wars title, and the N64 was just stacked with great Star Wars games, and the PS1 we really didn't get a lot of those. So this was our go-to Star Wars game, and we played the ever loving shit so hard, but boy, we played the shit out of it. We gave it an earnest try, man. So yeah, number 8, Jedi Power Battles. Number 7, this is one I don't talk about enough, The Sims. I loved The Sims as a kid. Absolutely loved The Sims as a kid. It was just, I mean, it was legitimately like probably up there, and I'm not even being hyperbolic, it was probably up there in my top 5 most played PlayStation 2 games. And that's specifically the one I'm talking about, which I don't even know if the PlayStation 2 game came out in the year 2000, but it's, you know, similar game from the PC release. If the PC release was 2000, the Sims, the PS2 version might have been a little bit later, but regardless, that game, the first Sims game that came to PlayStation 2, I played that motherfucker endlessly. You know, it's up there with San Andreas, and up there with SmackDown versus Raw, and Here Comes the Pain. It's weird because a lot of those mechanics, a lot of what I loved about The Sims, I still kind of like in other games, but I don't play The Sims anymore. It's really weird. Like, I love management and the simulation aspects of managing my team in NBA 2K, or doing a GM mode in fucking you know, a wrestling game, or building mechanics. I like building mechanics in different games, but I for whatever reason I fell off of The Sims after the second game, which, yeah, the second game that was on PS2, I fell off after that. And I even tried like the Herbs game, and I tried some of the other ones, but it was just the 1 and 2 really hit for me. And I don't know, I just liked building up my little, you know, putting in the cheat codes on the PS2 and then getting everything for free, and going and building off my little dream house, which usually a pretty big dream house, and got the, you know, just setting it up how you want it, managing your little characters' lives. Like, something about that was really appealing to my childhood brain. And I think if I went back to it, honestly, I probably still would enjoy it, but it's a time sink. And there's just something that nowadays I really get satisfaction out of, like completing a narrative. And that's not really present with The Sims. But still, I can't deny how much I loved that game as a kid. All right, let's start rapid fire running through these here, where we're running long as shit. Number 6, we have WWF No Mercy. And this is a game that I never really got to experience. Once again, I was a PlayStation 1 kid. And when I got older, I went and bought a Nintendo 64. I was probably 19, 20. I was an adult when I bought my first. And I played the Nintendo 64 on other people's consoles. But having it myself and really being able to dive into No Mercy as an adult really allowed me to appreciate that game on a much deeper level. This is probably, on a mechanical front, the most impressive wrestling game ever made, I would say. The freedom that you had in No Mercy is kind of astonishing looking back, especially when comparing it to the more... I don't want to be dismissive because we're going to talk about one of those games later, but the Smackdown games at the time were a lot simpler in just the base setup and didn't have nearly like the advanced physics and shit that No Mercy had. You know, you're talking about in No Mercy, you could set up ladders and then, you know, have a dude climbing the ladder and you're jumping off the top rope and landing perfectly with a clothesline or setting someone up, setting a table up outside the ring. And, you know, your opponent's like up on the apron and then you spear them through the table outside the ring. Like, there was so much cool shit here on just a physics level that was not at all in any of the competitors' games. No Mercy was so impressive. Just and we talked about it earlier with the AEW Fight Forever. The ability to pick it up and play it with a friend and a friend who had never played even a wrestling game before, could pick it up and play it, mash some buttons and kind of understand it. But the mechanical complexity that is buried within WWF No Mercy is astonishing, man. Astonishing for a 5th gen title. And, you know, the backstage areas, the quest for the title, going through the ranks to get the title. Like, there was just, and the alternate attires, which is something that still to this day, you kind of can do it a little bit in 2K23, but I loved, you know, being able to switch right there on the fly, all the different costumes and pairing. You could pair like, you could pair the fucking Triple H's attire with Kane's attire. Like, there was so many mixing and matching. You could do so much with the customization for this game that was released in 2000 on the Nintendo 64. Really, really wild, man. And it would be much higher on this list if I was a Nintendo. It would probably be, honestly, number 1 on this list if I was a Nintendo 64 kid and I had that built up nostalgia. I haven't played it nearly as much as the other games on this list. And I got to be true to that nostalgia in some sense. So, number 6, WWF No Mercy. Number 5, and we talked about a lot of these games that are coming up here in my top 10 PS1 games, so I'll be brief on these. Number 5, I got SpiderMan, the Neversoft Spider-Man title for the PS1. And I'm trying to think of what to say here that I didn't say on that list. First off, I'll say the story. I think I did talk about the story, but I don't think that story gets enough love. That Spider-Man Neversoft title for the PS1. I don't think it gets enough love. Once again, totally original story that was created for this game, which at the time was so fucking rare with superhero games. Easily, at the time, the best Spider-Man game ever made. Easily. And you're talking about a story that incorporated tons of villains, tons of the Spidey pals popping up, and solid humor, but still a pretty, not saying deep, but there was like a legitimate plot line going on there to follow along with the humor, some great level design with some solid diversity between going in, full on action and throwing the vases and using all your different fucking tools of the trade, and then also having some stealth sections to the gameplay. It was just undoubtedly at the time the most important superhero game ever made, and undoubtedly probably a top 5 Spider-Man game ever. Number 5, Spider-Man for the PS1. Number 4, Resident Evil Code Veronica. The game we have all been waiting on Capcom to remake. Sitting here and we're going to keep waiting, I imagine, because there's some difficulty with this remake, especially with just the tone of Code Veronica and the Ashford twins and some of the complications there that could create some modern day controversy that for those of you who played the game will probably know what I'm talking about. I could see some controversy being sparked because of Code Veronica, and I could see maybe that's why Capcom is avoiding this remake, or maybe looking at how they can make some adjustments to that one specific thing. But I will say, in terms of very dark, Resident Evil storylines, it's the darkest. In terms of the mechanics that were introduced with, fucking the RE1, RE2, and RE3, the original trilogy on the PS1, you're talking about a very big leap in hardware coming to Dreamcast in 2000, then later coming to PlayStation 2 and GameCube. Quite the leap in technology. And so you're looking at it's a very, very hard game. 100% will give you that. But you're looking at what is mechanically maybe the most impressive, most fluid version of those tank-based controls that we've ever really seen with a Resident Evil game. And there's just a dark, really dark, wild story here. Some great Wesker lore, and so a good Claire story, a solid Chris story in the mix here as well. And I love Code Veronica. I really hope we get a remake of it at some point. Am I holding my breath? No. Next up, we have number 3, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 in the building. This game was absolutely one of the most played PlayStation 1 games for me and for my buddies. Once again, trying to think of something to say here about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 that I didn't say on my top 10 PS1 list there. It was just, it took from the bones of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and just gave you, the manuals. It gave you the more customization, and it just opened the floodgates to all these damn improvements that we started seeing from this point on with the series, with the revert and all that shit being introduced in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 that changed the game. But manuals, I would say that's probably the biggest game changer of any addition to any Tony Hawk Pro Skater game ever. So I don't know, it was. You're also looking at Neversoft, who, speaking of that Spider-Man game, an incredibly prolific team over there at Activision, but they were wizards on a technical level. You're looking at Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, a PS1 title that was, running on older hardware, but god damn, it got the most out of that hardware. Like it performed so solid. It was such a smooth and fast experience. It was stunning on a technical level what they were able to do on that PlayStation 1. So number 3, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Coming on in at number 2, we have WWF Smackdown, the first Smackdown game. And this is, to me, more than anything with this title, it's a nostalgic pick. I have to be honest. When you're comparing this and No Mercy, I think I appreciate and maybe even enjoy the gameplay of No Mercy a little bit more. But if I'm being honest to myself, I played this game to death. I like Smackdown 2 more, but I played the first game to death. And playing the attitudes and the war zones and having these cumbersome, clunky, just not fun at all wrestling games on the PlayStation 1, and then diving into Smackdown that was just so intuitive, this pick up and play new approach that we got from THQ and Ukes. It was a game changer. It was a game changer for because it created, from this point on, it spawned what we would get as what most people consider either No Mercy or Here Comes the Pain as like the greatest wrestling game ever. So this was this spawned all of that. This was what got us to the point to get what is widely considered the greatest series in wrestling game history with the Smackdown series. And it was finally like PlayStation fans, they finally had a chance to eat good on the wrestling game front. It's weird looking back now. I think I actually might have enjoyed having a Nintendo 64 more than having a PlayStation 1 as a kid. We had a PlayStation 1 because my dad wanted to play Tomb Raider and Resident Evil 2. I played my cousin's copy of Resident Evil 2. He had a PlayStation 1 and I was just hooked to that. So I remember like really, really wanting a PlayStation 1 for that. And so but I think looking back now, having all those great Star Wars titles, having access to WCW NWO Revenge and WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, and like, I think I might have, and you know, I never got to experience like the Mario games back in the day. So I think I might have appreciated as a kid the Nintendo 64 a little bit more than I appreciated the PS1. That's a console I really want to do like a retrospective on at some point. Dive into the Nintendo 64 a little bit more in depth, and yeah, really check out that library a little bit more. That's maybe a retirement goal. But yeah, anyways, SmackDown, PS1, fucking having the season mode at the time was really impressive. It was, looking at it now, very basic and simple, but at the time, you know, having a week to week format that you're rolling out, having like little cutscenes that would play out after matches and shit, and little feuds that would carry over, which sometimes made no sense, but it was cool at the time and more advanced. I would say even more advanced than like the No Mercy season mode or title chasing quest mode, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But yeah, going with WWF Smackdown in at number 2. And number 1, back to old nostalgia here. Going with Crash Bash. Once again, this is a nostalgic pick. Just playing it with my uncle, who I talked about in the last episode, who's no longer here, a huge influence, role model in my life, and this was our game. This is our go-to. But I still think that Crash Bash has some shit in there that is fun to revisit. Like this and Resident Evil 2 from 1998 are like the two PS1 games that I like revisiting the most. And yeah, you know, just the mini games here are fun as shit. The little air hockey mini game. You got the pogo stick mini game. You got the one where you're on the little hovercraft and then doing you're going around the circle. What is it? The one where you're hitting each other off of like the icy platforms. The platform is shifting and shaking and you're bashing each other off of it. It's just so great to play with the tank wars. You know, it's just such a fun game to play with a buddy, run through it. And you know, my favorite memory, I don't know why, is hoarding a bunch of those goddamn balls on the little air hockey game, hoarding those bitches and just blasting them off into different directions. And it's just cool that like you're playing a lot of similar mini games over the course as you're leveling up and getting to the next stage, but they're reinventing it in small ways to give you an extra challenge or new mechanics added in. Just cool shit. And then with, you know, the little boss fights to finish off each level. Crash Bash is one that, in terms of PS1 games that I actually do enjoy going back to, it's at the very top of that list, along with Resident Evil 2 for me. So number 1, my number 1 game of the year 2000 is Crash Bash, which a lot of people consider one of the worst Crash games ever. I absolutely do not. I loved that damn game. And yeah, man. So we'll hit up my list for 2001 next week and go on from that point until we get to my top 100 games of all time, which would probably be sometime around like October, November, December range. End of the year this year. It will come this year, though. Hold me to it.